Chosen one, what if I told you that the very things that made you feel broken were actually your divine qualifications? That every rejection, every closed door, every exile was not a sign of failure, but a mark of favor? They tried to dim your light to convince you that you didn't belong. But in reality, their attempts to erase you only ignited something greater. You weren't cast aside because you were weak. You were set apart because you're powerful. This video is your confirmation that every painful moment wasn't just happening to you. It was happening for you. It was sacred preparation for the leader you're becoming. If this message already speaks to your soul, subscribe, like this video, and comment 77 below. Stay with me, because we're about to uncover the truth behind their rejection and your rise. From outcast to authority, there's a certain kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being alone, but from feeling like you don't belong. Maybe you've experienced it. The quiet sting of not being chosen, the subtle way others step back, the hushed conversations that stop when you walk into the room. It's not that you haven't tried to fit in. You've watered down your words, softened your edges, tried to be what they wanted, all in the hope that someone would say, "You're one of us." But it never lasted, did it? No matter how much you adjusted, the feeling remained. And somewhere along the way, you began to question yourself. Was it something you said, something you did, or just something you are? The truth is, the very things they called too much were never the problem. They were the clues, the signs that you weren't just another face in the crowd. You were something different, something set apart. It's not easy to be the one who doesn't fit the mold. At times, it felt as if everyone else had been handed a map at birth, guiding them through life's social terrains, while you were left to wander. You've had those moments of confusion, standing in the middle of it all and wondering why they couldn't see what you saw, feel what you felt. You've questioned your sensitivity, doubted your instincts, and tried to turn down the volume on your voice. They told you that you were overthinking, too intense or too sensitive. They dismissed your honesty as harshness, your vision as unrealistic. And every time you tried to explain yourself, it only made things worse. It wasn't just rejection you felt. It was a deep ache, a sense that maybe they were right, that maybe you were simply too much for the world around you. But that ache, that tension, wasn't a sign of failure. It was a sign of purpose. Consider the story of Joseph in Genesis 37. He had dreams that set him apart, that pointed to a destiny far greater than he could have imagined. But sharing those dreams didn't make him popular. His brothers couldn't handle what he carried. They rejected him, cast him out, and sold him into slavery. To the outside world, it looked like Joseph was being punished, cast aside, erased. But in reality, he was being prepared. That rejection wasn't the end of his story. It was the beginning. God wasn't punishing him, he was positioning him. Joseph's exile became the very stage on which his authority was built. He had to be set apart so he could step into his purpose. In the same way, your journey hasn't been a series of random setbacks. It's been a series of divine appointments, each one shaping you into the leader you were always meant to be. Once you start to see it this way, the pieces begin to fall into place. What once felt like rejection now feels like refinement. You realize that every closed door was a redirection. Every harsh word was a push toward greater growth. The edges they called too sharp have become your strength. The sensitivity they mocked has become your discernment. And the honesty they rejected has become your foundation of trust. You begin to notice that you're no longer trying to fit in. Instead, you're building a life that fits you. The connections that once drained you are replaced by those that inspire you. The spaces that once felt too small now seem wide open, ready to hold the fullness of who you are. It's not that the world around you has changed. It's that you've changed. You've embraced your authenticity, and in doing so, you've begun to step into your authority. What's even more remarkable is that all along, there's been a greater plan at work. While it felt like you were wandering in isolation, God was working behind the scenes. Every time you were set apart, he was setting you up. Every time you felt silenced, he was teaching you to hear his voice more clearly. While they overlooked you, he was equipping you. It wasn't that you weren't ready. It's that you were being made ready. When you see it through this lens, the story shifts. You're no longer the outcast, the one who didn't belong. You're the one who was hidden, protected, and refined for something greater. You're stepping into a position that was always meant for you, but couldn't be rushed. This wasn't just about survival. This was about preparation. And now, as you stand here, looking back at all the moments that once felt so painful, you can see them for what they really were. They weren't punishments. They were promotions in disguise. The rejection you felt wasn't about pushing you down. It was about lifting you up. You were never too much. You were exactly what you were supposed to be. And now you're ready to step into that truth. But this moment requires more than acknowledgement. It requires a decision to stop running from what sets you apart and start embracing it fully. This is where you choose not to look for validation in the world around you, but to find it within. It's where you accept that you were never meant to fit in because you were meant to stand out. What comes next is up to you. You've been refined, prepared, and positioned. Now it's time to walk in that authority, to use the gifts you've been given, to speak the truth you've been holding, and to lead in a way that only you can. The world may not have seen it before, but they'll see it now. The same people who doubted you will look back and realize you were never the problem. You were the solution they didn't understand. You're not just a participant in your story. You're the author. You're not just the one who was rejected. You're the one who was chosen. And with that truth firmly in your heart, you're ready to take your place. Comment authority if you're ready to step into your purpose. Pain was the portal. You've spent nights wondering why things had to hurt so much. Why the betrayal, the silence, the isolation. It didn't seem fair. You did everything right. You gave, you cared, you stayed true to your heart. And yet the pain kept coming. At times, it felt like the world was conspiring against you. The people you trusted most turned away. The path you thought you were meant to walk crumbled under your feet. It left you questioning not just others, but yourself. You wondered if you were doing something wrong, if you were somehow attracting this heartbreak. But here's the truth you may not have realized yet. Your tears were not wasted. Not a single one. They weren't a sign of failure. They were the soil where something sacred was growing. You didn't know it then, but your pain was the portal through which your greatest purpose would emerge. Every moment of rejection felt like a door slamming shut. Every loss, every goodbye left a scar you thought might never heal. But what you didn't see at the time was how those closed doors were protecting you. You didn't understand that the silence wasn't emptiness. It was space for something new. Every time you were left alone, you were being given the opportunity to listen more closely to the whispers of your soul. Every painful goodbye was a divine redirection, nudging you toward a path you wouldn't have chosen otherwise. It hurt so deeply because it was so personal. These weren't just random setbacks. They were the chiseling away of everything that didn't serve you. What felt like abandonment was actually preparation. Your pain was not in vain. It was an investment in your growth. Isaiah 61 verse 3 speaks of a promise, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. This wasn't just poetic language. It was a map of transformation, a sacred assurance that from every season of mourning, something beautiful would rise. You might not have seen it then, but those ashes were always meant to make way for beauty. The pain you endured was never a random occurrence. It was the crucible in which your empathy, compassion, and wisdom were forged. Like a seed buried in the soil, you needed that darkness to germinate, to grow roots deep enough to support the calling God had placed on your life. And now, that seed is breaking through the surface. Slowly, the signs of transformation began to emerge. Maybe you noticed how your heart softened toward others who were suffering. Maybe you found yourself giving advice you never thought you'd have the wisdom to offer. You began to see patterns in your life, moments of clarity in the midst of chaos. The very things that once broke you now gave you strength. You started to recognize that you could survive the unthinkable, and not just survive but grow because of it. Small victories began to appear. A deeper understanding of yourself, a stronger connection to the divine, a renewed sense of purpose. You were no longer reacting to life. You were beginning to respond with intentionality. These were the early blossoms of a life transformed. Behind the scenes, something extraordinary was happening. What felt like a random sequence of hardships was actually a carefully orchestrated process. The universe wasn't punishing you, it was preparing you. Every tear shed, every prayer whispered in the dark, every moment of doubt and fear was part of a divine blueprint. Forces greater than you can imagine were aligning events, people, and opportunities in ways you couldn't yet see. Synchronicities appeared. The right words came at the right time. The people you needed walked into your life just as others walked out. It was as if the world was rearranging itself around your growth. And it was because your calling is real. It's intentional. It's supported by something far greater than you can see. This is where the shift becomes undeniable. You begin to understand that your pain wasn't just preparation. It was sacred preparation. The questions that once haunted you, why me? Why this? Start to feel less urgent. Instead, you ask, what now? You see that your story isn't just about the suffering. It's about what the suffering built within you. You start to embrace your past, not as a weight that drags you down, but as the foundation of your purpose. It's not just that you survived. It's that you grew stronger, wiser, and more compassionate through it all. This is the moment when you stop looking back with regret and start looking forward with hope. You realize that you're not just the product of what happened to you, you're the product of what you've overcome. And now you're ready to take the next step. You're ready to walk into the life that was always meant for you. The pain no longer defines you. The growth does. You know that you're not just moving on, you're moving forward. It's time to release the fear that held you back, to let go of the hesitation that kept you small, and to step boldly into the purpose that's been waiting for you. You are no longer bound by what others did or didn't do. You are free to create, to build, to lead. This isn't just a change in perspective. It's a change in power. You've reclaimed your story, and now you're writing the next chapter with confidence and clarity. Every choice you make, every boundary you set, every dream you pursue is a declaration that you are here for more than survival. You are here for impact. Comment portal if this resonates with you, and you're ready to walk through the door your pain opened. You see what others can't. There's a subtle difference between looking at something and truly seeing it. You've felt this distinction your whole life, even if you couldn't name it at first. When everyone around you seemed comfortable taking things at face value, you noticed details they missed. You picked up on the emotions others hid, the energy that filled a room, the words left unsaid. You've always been able to read between the lines, to sense the deeper meaning in a glance, a tone, or a hesitation. At times, you may have wondered if this sensitivity was more of a curse than a blessing. Why couldn't you just go through life unaware, unbothered, like so many others? Why did you have to feel so much, see so much? But now, you're beginning to understand that what you thought was a burden is actually your greatest strength. Your ability to see what others can't is no accident. It's not a flaw, it's your gift. This heightened sensitivity has likely caused you pain. People may have labeled you as too sensitive, too emotional, or too intense. When you pointed out a truth no one else wanted to acknowledge, you were met with defensiveness or dismissal. Over time, you might have learned to keep these insights to yourself, fearing rejection or misunderstanding. But burying this part of yourself came at a cost. You felt isolated, misunderstood, and at times even ashamed of your gift. It's hard carrying something so profound when those around you can't, or won't, see it. But that inner conflict isn't meant to crush you. It's meant to refine you. The very struggles you faced have helped you hone your gift, to recognize its value and to understand why you were given this unique ability. In the Gospel of Mark, we read the story of Jesus healing a blind man in stages. Mark 8 verses 22 to 25. At first, the man could only see partially, describing people as walking trees. But as Jesus continued, his vision became clear. This passage reminds us that true vision often comes gradually. Your spiritual sight didn't appear all at once. It's been growing, becoming sharper with every trial you've faced. The process of learning to trust what you see, of discerning what's real from what's false, is all part of the preparation. It's not just about seeing clearly. It's about knowing when and how to use that clarity. This is the turning point, where you realize that what once felt like overthinking is actually divine insight. The pieces come together, and you understand that your vision is not just for you, it's meant to guide others. Once you start accepting your gift, you'll notice changes. You'll begin to trust your intuition more. You'll find yourself stepping into situations that once felt overwhelming because you now know you're equipped to handle them. You'll start speaking up when before you might have stayed silent, confident that your perspective can bring much-needed clarity. Small shifts in your daily life will reflect the deeper transformation happening within you. You'll sense when someone needs encouragement, when a situation requires calm leadership, or when a difficult truth must be spoken. This isn't about becoming a hero or a savior. It's about owning your role as a guide. As you lean into your gift, you'll notice how others start looking to you for direction, how your words and actions begin to light the path for those who can't yet see what you see. This growth isn't happening in isolation. Behind the scenes, divine forces are supporting you. What felt like a heavy burden is now revealing itself as a sacred calling. The patterns, the coincidences, the moments of unexpected clarity, all of these are signs that you're being guided. You'll start noticing how everything is connected, how each event in your life has been leading you to this point. The people who left, the challenges that tested you, the victories that seemed small at the time, they all fit into a greater plan. Your gift of spiritual sight isn't just a random quirk. It's a carefully placed tool, meant to help you navigate the complexities of your calling. And now, the universe is aligning in your favor, providing the opportunities and connections you need to step into your role. As this realization sinks in, you'll begin to embrace the responsibility that comes with your gift. This is not a moment to retreat or second-guess yourself. It's a moment to fully step into your power. Too often, people shy away from their purpose because it feels unfamiliar or because they fear being misunderstood. But this is your time to break free from those doubts. You were given this vision for a reason. It's not just about seeing the truth, it's about acting on it. Embracing your gift means letting go of fear, of hesitation, and of the need for approval from those who can't yet see what you see. It's about claiming your place as a guide, a leader, a source of clarity in a world often clouded by confusion. Now that you understand the value of your gift, it's time to use it boldly. Stop apologizing for what you see and start walking in it. Trust your instincts even when they go against the grain. Speak your truth even when it makes others uncomfortable. This is not about seeking conflict or validation. It's about standing firm in the role you were given. As you step into this authority, you'll find that your actions and words begin to carry a new weight. You'll inspire others to look deeper, to question what they've taken for granted, and to see the world with clearer eyes. This is your calling, not to follow the crowd, but to lead by example, showing what it means to live with integrity and insight. Comment vision if you're ready to walk boldly in what you see. And if you feel called to go even deeper, there's a sacred space reserved for our community, a private room where you receive full prophetic messages daily. Join the Prop Heron membership through the link in the description and walk this path with us. Isolation built revelation. There was a time when you felt like the silence would swallow you whole. Days stretched on, and it seemed like everyone else was out there, moving forward, connecting, succeeding, while you were left alone, standing still. You wondered what you had done wrong, why the people who once surrounded you had drifted away. Isolation felt like punishment, a heavy weight that reminded you of every perceived failure, every moment when things didn't go as planned. It wasn't just the absence of noise, it was the presence of doubt. But even in that doubt, something inside you whispered that this solitude wasn't random. It wasn't the world giving up on you. It was something deeper, something sacred. You may not have understood it then, but the isolation wasn't meant to destroy you. It was meant to refine you. In that stillness, you were forced to confront yourself. Without the distractions of others' opinions or the constant hum of external validation, you had no choice but to look inward. At first, it was uncomfortable, being alone with your thoughts, your fears, your uncertainties. It felt like an endless wilderness. But as time passed, you began to notice something shifting. The very absence of others' voices made room for a new voice to emerge, the voice of clarity, of intuition, of divine guidance. It was subtle at first, like a faint melody beneath the noise, but as you tuned into it, you realized this was a voice you could trust. This wasn't just isolation, it was sacred preparation. It was a season designed not to punish you, but to prepare you for something greater. In 1 Kings 19 verses 11 to 12, the prophet Elijah experiences a moment of revelation. He stands on a mountain as powerful forces pass by, a wind so strong it shatters rocks, an earthquake, a fire, but God is not in any of them. Then comes a gentle whisper, and that's where Elijah encounters God's presence. Like Elijah, your most profound revelations came not in the chaos, but in the quiet. The very stillness that once felt unbearable became the space where God spoke to you. It wasn't a loud declaration or a dramatic sign. It was a soft yet undeniable knowing, a nudge toward a deeper understanding of your purpose. What once felt like exile transformed into an invitation, a chance to meet God in the secret place, to hear His voice more clearly than ever before. As you began to embrace the stillness, subtle shifts started to occur. You found yourself thinking differently, questioning the narratives you had always accepted. The things that once made you anxious began to lose their power. You started to notice patterns, to see how certain events, no matter how painful, had been perfectly aligned to bring you to this moment. What looked like rejection now felt like redirection. What felt like abandonment now seemed more like protection. And through it all, you discovered a quiet confidence. You weren't rushing to please others or scrambling for external affirmation. Instead, you moved with a new sense of certainty, a deep knowing that the steps you were taking weren't random. They were intentional, guided by something much greater than yourself. This transformation didn't happen in a vacuum. Behind the scenes, a divine hand was shaping every experience. The moments of silence were not empty. They were filled with divine strategy. The people who left your life weren't just gone. They created space for the right connections to come. The opportunities you thought were lost were actually making room for the ones that would align with your purpose. Synchronicities began to emerge. Conversations, insights, encounters that felt too perfectly timed to be mere chance. These were not coincidences. They were confirmation that you weren't walking this path alone. Higher forces were clearing the way, aligning your circumstances, and placing you exactly where you needed to be. As you embraced this understanding, you reached a turning point. The solitude that once felt heavy now felt like a gift. It was no longer about waiting for others to validate your path or explain your journey. You began to trust that the insights you had gained in the quiet were enough. You didn't need to look outside for answers because you had found them within. This was a sacred moment, when you realized that your transformation wasn't just happening to you, but through you. It was the point where you stopped fearing the silence and started welcoming it, knowing that in those quiet moments, you could hear the voice of truth more clearly than ever. Now that you've come to this place of understanding, you can move forward with confidence. You're not stepping into the unknown blind or uncertain. You're stepping with the assurance that every season of isolation, every difficult goodbye, every moment of silence has prepared you for what's ahead. You can let go of fear, doubt, and hesitation, because you know that what lies before you isn't just possible, it's inevitable. This isn't the end of your journey. It's the beginning of something extraordinary. You have the clarity, the guidance, and the strength to build the life you were always meant to lead. The isolation wasn't a punishment. It was a sacred, necessary step to align you with your true calling. Comment revelation if this resonates with you and you're ready to walk forward with certainty. Authenticity is your superpower. It's a feeling you've had for as long as you can remember, this sense that you don't quite fit into the boxes others seem to slide into so easily. You've tried, of course. You've gone through the motions, followed the rules, played the part that was expected of you. But it always felt off, like you were wearing a suit that didn't belong to you, walking in shoes that weren't made for your path. And every time you tried to adapt, to blend in, the dissonance grew louder. Deep down, you knew you weren't made to fit into someone else's mold. You weren't supposed to blend in. And the very thing you've spent years trying to suppress, your authentic self, turns out to be the key to everything you've been searching for. That struggle, that constant push and pull between who you are and who the world tells you to be, it's not just frustrating, it's exhausting. You've likely found yourself asking, Why can't I just be like everyone else? Why can't I find a place where I truly belong? But that question, that frustration, stems from the misunderstanding that belonging requires conformity. It doesn't. True belonging only happens when you stop trying to fit into the room and start shaping the room to fit you. The isolation you felt, the rejection, the sideways glances, they weren't signs that you're broken. They were signals that you were standing too close to people who couldn't handle your truth. And the emotional toll of constantly shrinking yourself just to make others comfortable, that wasn't meant to break you. It was meant to wake you up, to remind you that pretending to be anything less than your full self will always feel hollow, and to give you the courage to say, enough. It's no coincidence that Scripture constantly returns to the theme of being set apart. In 1 Peter 2 verse 9 we read, "But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light." Chosen, royal, holy, special. These aren't words of conformity. They're words of distinction. God didn't call you out of the darkness so you could hide. He called you into the light so you could stand out, so you could show others what it looks like to walk unapologetically in truth. This isn't about arrogance or rebellion. It's about knowing who you are and whose you are. It's about realizing that your authenticity isn't just a personality trait. It's your divine appointment. It's the way God designed you to lead, to influence, and to inspire. The transformation happens when you stop resisting it. When you let go of the masks, the performances, the exhausting cycle of trying to measure up to someone else's standards. It's when you realize that your voice, the one you've been told to quiet down, is exactly what people need to hear. You'll notice a shift, subtle at first, as you step more fully into your authentic self. Maybe you'll find yourself speaking up in a meeting where you'd normally stay silent. Maybe you'll say no to something that no longer aligns with who you are. Or maybe you'll feel a newfound peace in just being you, without apology, without justification. These small moments add up. They're the visible signs of transformation. They're the markers of a life lived in integrity. And they're what draw others toward you, not because you're trying to please them, but because your authenticity gives them permission to be authentic too. What's happening beneath the surface is no accident. There's a reason certain opportunities open up when you're being true to yourself, and why others fall away. Divine alignment isn't just about a sudden breakthrough. It's about the steady, intentional unfolding of your purpose. The more you live authentically, the more you attract the people, places, and situations that are meant for you. The coincidences you notice? Those are confirmations. The connections that seem too perfect to be random? Those are divine appointments. By choosing authenticity, you're stepping into a stream of synchronicity, a flow where your external world starts to reflect your internal truth. And it's not just for your benefit. As you align more closely with who God made you to be, you also become a beacon for others. Your authenticity helps clear their path too. And yet, even in this process, there's often resistance. Embracing who you truly are means letting go of who you thought you had to be. It means stepping into the unknown, without the old scripts, without the safety nets of approval you once relied on. This can feel terrifying. What if they don't like the real me? What if I lose the few connections I have? These are valid fears, but they're also distractions. The truth is, you've already spent enough time trying to please people who were never going to see you for who you really are. Now, you get to choose something different. You get to stand in your power, in your truth, without hesitation. This is your sacred moment. A moment to step fully into who you are and trust that being your authentic self is not just enough. It's exactly what the world needs. You've always known you were different. Now you know why. The rejection, the loneliness, the trials. It all prepared you for this moment. You're not just surviving, you're leading. And those who tried to erase you, they'll soon realize that all they did was ignite the fire that made you unstoppable. This is your time to step forward, to lead authentically, and to show the world what divine preparation looks like. Subscribe if you haven't yet, like this video, and comment "I am chosen" to let this message anchor in your soul. Share it with someone who needs to hear this. Thank you to all our supporting members. For full prophetic revelations daily, join the membership via the link in the description. Your spiritual path deserves more than fragments. Step into the full light. This is just the beginning. Your leadership is about to rewrite the rules.